As always, I'll show you some good reps and then we'll talk about it. So for the rear foot elevated split squat or the Bulgarian split squat, we're going to talk about three things. The first is going to be the height of the back leg and what implement you use. The second is going to be the stride length, basically how far should you step forward. And the third is going to be the actual execution of the lift. So how high should the back leg be, and should you use a laces down technique or a toe down technique? So a laces down technique looks like this, where my laces are flat down on a surface like a bench or a wheel or a roller or something like that. And the movement looks again like this, just like I demonstrated before. And a toe down technique looks like this, where my toes are pressed down into a surface that's much lower, but the execution of the lift is essentially identical otherwise. So here's the deal. It really doesn't matter which you use. There are going to be people out there on the internet who say that the toe down technique is better because you can push down into the implement and create more stability in that back leg rectus femoris muscle. It can help create pelvic stability, and that's all technically true. But this exercise is primarily about what you're doing with the front leg. So what I care about is that you pick a technique and a setup that allows you to execute this movement and feel really good and stable and strong and balanced. And I'll tell you right now, I personally don't love the toe down execution. I actually feel, ironically, I feel way more stable with a laces down technique, and I feel like my execution is cleaner, easier, and more intuitive for me. But there are a lot of people who feel the same way I do about the laces down technique, about the toe down technique. So try them both and decide what feels best for you. If you're gonna go laces down, you're gonna wanna use something higher, something just below knee height. And for a lot of you guys, it's pretty easy to use your bench, but depending on how tall you are, that might be a little too high or a little too short. But I'll show you what to do about that in a second. If you're gonna go toes down, you're gonna wanna use something obviously much shorter, something just above ankle height. And if you want to make the toe down a little bit better, use a wedge, which will let you press into it like this. Now, if you want to use your laces down on a bench, but you feel like the bench is a little too high relative to your height, you can actually elevate the front foot, which essentially brings the relationship between front and back foot a little bit closer, basically moves the bench downward, and for a lot of people, that makes things a lot more comfortable. As always, if you send a form video, I'm gonna help you with all this stuff. Now, once you've chosen which implement you wanna use, we need to talk about stride length, and we're gonna keep it super simple. Because everybody's limb length and structure is a little bit different, here's what I want you to do. I want you to back up into the implement that you're using and just take a very intuitive step forward and start there. From here, we'll execute the lift, and we can tinker a little bit forward, a little bit back based on the form video. Now, when it comes to the execution, I'm gonna show you the difference between doing this for quads and for glutes, because I think seeing it in comparison can help make it click. So you've chosen your implement that you're gonna use, you're gonna take a nice intuitive step forward, and you're now in this position. What do you do? Now, if you wanted to do this for a little bit more quads, what you would do is you would stay a little bit more upright, and you'd push the knee forward, and it would look like this. If we want to do this for glutes, we're going to think about chopping the hips back and keeping our chest over the front knee. So instead of going straight down with the chest up, letting the knee go forward, we're going to chop at the hips and go down like this. Chop at the hips like this. And what that does is it keeps our front leg, if you look at me, I'm going to rest at the bottom just to show you. Now, you can see that my shin is mostly vertical. It's a little bit tilted forward. I feel best like that. And my knee angle is roughly 90 degrees. What that's going to do, it's going to take my quad out of the equation a little bit. And because I'm leaned forward a little bit and I've sent my hips back, I'm already getting a deep stretch in this glute right here, which is what we want to do. So if you want to make this more glute focused, what we are thinking about is chopping at the hips, sending the butt back, and keeping a roughly vertical shin and a roughly 90-degree knee angle. Chop at the hips, keep the weight over that front knee. And that's how you'll make it more glute dominant. So to recap, decide whether you're going to do laces down on a slightly higher implement like a bench or toes down on a slightly shorter implement like a pair of bumper plates. And while you might hear people freaking out about this pelvic stability thing, remember the goal of this movement is to work the front leg. If people are freaking out about what you do with the back leg, it's probably not as important. So choose the implement you want to use, and if you want to use the bench and find that it's too tall, elevate the front foot, and take a nice intuitive size step forward, go laces down or toe down, they're both fine to be honest. Pick the one you feel more stable with. And then we are not keeping our chest up, we're chopping the hips back, keeping the chest over the front leg, chop the hips back, and go down, keeping a roughly vertical shin and a roughly 90-degree knee angle. It doesn't need to be perfect, and in fact, I actually don't think a perfectly vertical shin and a perfect 90-degree knee angle is actually the most comfortable. I actually like them a little bit tilted forward. So here we're in this position, we're holding dumbbells, we're chopping at the hips, we're descending down. You'll feel a big stretch in that back leg. And that's how we do a rear foot elevated split squat or Bulgarian split squat for the glutes.